Many people at Goldman Sachs have bridged the world of Wall Street and sports long before I got there. One anecdote, I was really proud of the partnership AT&T had with the Yankees.
Hmm.
We were one of their largest partners.
Yep.
I had renegotiated the renewal agreement. We had the logo behind Derek Jeter when he hit his final hit in Yankee Stadium. I'm sharing that story with a partner at Goldman Sachs, and he's like, "Oh, that's cool." I created the Yes Network. Like, oh, okay, got it.
Welcome to Sports Business Unplugged, where the real game happens off the field. No fluff, no filters, just raw, uncut stories from the pros shaping the industry. Their journeys, their challenges, their passion, straight from the source. Let's talk sports business.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Sports Business Unplugged, the show where we have raw, real, and relatable conversations with the insiders shaping the sports industry today. I'm your host, Andrew Sachs, and today we have an absolutely legendary marketer in the building. Joining me is Ryan Lucky. He's an executive who quite literally started his career at the Olympics and has been crushing it in sports business for 25 years since. Ryan is currently the managing partner and principal at Outlyr Advisors, where he helps brands and sports organizations build smarter partnerships from strategy and negotiation to activation and impact. His story goes way beyond the title. He has led sponsorship and marketing teams at Miller-Coors, at AT&T, and even Goldman Sachs. Talk about a diverse resume. He's even helped brands with creative fan campaigns, managed dozens of sports partnerships spanning the NFL, the NBA, college sports, you name it. What I love about Ryan's journey is how unconventional it's been. Right out of college, he worked for the 1996 Atlanta Olympic Games. Since then, he's been a marketing guru, telecom sponsorship strategist, Wall Street marketing exec. He's honestly, he's done it all. Along with that, he's been an adjunct professor at SMU and a mentor to countless young professionals, which is what this show is all about. In today's episode, we're going to hear his incredible stories from behind the scenes at the Olympics to the boardrooms of the Fortune 500 companies. We'll talk about how he's built partnerships with leagues and superstar athletes, how he's led teams through crazy challenges, and the lessons he's learned about innovation, leadership, and making an impact. We'll even get into how he balances his top executives with being a husband and a dad, and why giving back through teaching is so important to him. And of course, we're going to have some fun rapid fire questions at the end. So stick around, whether you're a student trying to break into sports or you're a seasoned pro just trying to learn a little bit more. This conversation is going to be packed with insight, honesty, and a whole lot of inspiration. Ryan Lucky's in the house. I could not be more excited for this one. So let's get into it. Hey, Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing well, Andrew. Thank you for the invite. Look forward to catching up. Appreciated seeing your journey on what you're building here, and absolutely thrilled to join you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So let's get into it. Just first, take us back to 1996. You called it your first job with the Atlanta Olympics. You called it the coolest first job in history, where you were outfitting boxers and running on adrenaline for the 20-hour days. What was that experience like for a fresh college grad, and what key lessons did it teach you about breaking into the sports industry at that young age?
You know what? It was amazing, as you can imagine. I won't say overwhelming, but I will say inspiring. I had been trying to get a foot in the door in the sports business. I had studied sports medicine as an undergrad. There was a foot in the door to work at the biggest event in the world. When I was there, I'm walking around. I had the privilege of walking around the Olympic Village, and I saw athletes who had worked anywhere from 10 to 30 years to get there. I got my foot in the door through an internship that led to somebody offering me a summer job. So I didn't work nearly as hard as all those athletes who had been training. So it taught me a great appreciation, taught me about gratitude really early on. And it also
Mhm.
taught me I don't know anything yet. I studied sports medicine as an undergrad, but I learned that summer where I made $2,000 for the entire summer working at the Olympics, and somebody in this who's bigger than was very big in the sports business, let me sleep on their couch for that summer. Taught me the importance of having a thirst for learning. because with the medical background, I knew I wanted to pivot into the business side. I better get smarter on marketing. I better get smarter on
Yep.
finance. I
Yep.
better recognize what this business is all
Yep.
about. So
Yep.
really, it was around gratitude and learning.
And then shortly after that, early in your career, you kind of transitioned to working at Miller-Coors, which was kind of a different thing. You probably didn't think you would ever be at Miller-Coors. You managed sports sponsorships for a portfolio of beer brands in the heat of the so-called beer wars. How did you approach that, competing with giants like Anheuser-Busch on the sponsorship stage while keeping each beer brand's identity distinct? Is there any favorite campaign or partnership from those days that you did?
Let me take one step back before that because it shaped long before I ever worked on sports business at what was Miller, then Coors, then became Miller-Coors. Today is Molson Coors. Great advice I got early in my career was it's called sports marketing, but remember, sports is in like 4-point font, marketing is in 50-point font. We're not hiring you because you like sports or because baseball stats. We're not hiring you to
Yep.
be a general manager. We're
Yep.
hiring you to grow our business. So I made a very conscious pivot to ask when I started was get me far away from sports. I had a lot of experience in it from Atlanta and from grassroots soccer programs. I worked on it before that, but it was foundational for me to learn brand management, work on brands like Blue Moon, Milwaukee's Best, Keystone Light, learn
Yep.
about the beer business, learn about how to grow a business, how to run a P&L before I ever touch sports. So I have a very strong foundation and a strong belief, as I do in my teaching, is I need to teach you marketing, and then we can figure out the sports product that you're going to want to work on. Sports business, the reason why sports business is so fascinating is generally the business cases around sports are just way more interesting. AI is going to change the way we live our life with healthcare way more than it'll change sports.
Mhm.
But talking about how it's coming to life in sports is way cooler than
Mhm.
talking about, your routine exam with your doctor.
Mhm.
I bring that up as background because it allowed me to become a marketer who knows sports, not a sports guy. And so if I think about, yeah, there was a genuine challenge. Coors Light, Rocky Mountain Cold Refreshment, Miller Lite, the beer that invented the
Yep.
light beer category. But we're in as you described it, beer wars. Maybe it's more just beer competition
Mhm.
against Anheuser-Busch. Much bigger company. We had to act more like a challenger brand. One of the most fun things I got to work on in a campaign, really tactical, but I was really proud of, was when Coors Light was the official beer of the NFL. Um, I was working on a program with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they won their sixth Super Bowl. All right, so we had to,
Yeah.
find a way to commemorate
Yep.
it because we were the official beer of the NFL. We were able to get access to the logos of every Super Bowl that the Steelers won. So Andrew, or I'm sorry, yeah, Andrew, what's the typical quantity that beer is sold in grocery stores and convenience stores and liquor stores? When you
6
buy
or
beer,
12?
how many beers are you buying at a time?
6 or 12?
There you go, six pack.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah.
Super Bowls had the Steelers won?
6.
Six. Okay,
Yeah.
so we found a way. Instead of trying to do a six pack, the guys at the brewery were ready to choke me because, like, really, you want a six pack with every individual logo? No, no, no. We're going to stretch this out over 2 months, and one can per week or one can every 10 days is going to come off the brewery with Super Bowl 9, then Super Bowl 10, then Super Bowl 13 and 14. And we created this, encourage fans in Pittsburgh and Western and Central Pennsylvania collect all six.
Mhm.
Sold a lot of beer doing it that way. And the NFL is you pay a premium to partner with the NFL, but that one was absolutely worth it in
Mhm.
terms of fan affinity for Coors Light in Western Pennsylvania. This goes back 15 years, but we had so much fun. Even the guys in the brewery who this stuff's really hard, they had fun
Uh-huh.
doing this.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's
that is if not a campaign, that is a program. And I like that more than just general marketing campaigns and ad campaigns because you're getting involved. When you have packaging, when you're dealing with packaging, you got the actual product in your hand. When you're dealing with advertising, it's like, oh, that's cool. You used, X great former quarterback in your TV
Yep.
commercial. Yeah, okay, that's cool. But getting the beer in the hand was a genuine lot of fun.
Yeah. So do these ideas just come to your head, or how is this idea formed? So you just mentioned it in a meeting, and that's how it was formed?
No, it was it becomes, foundational lesson. When you become a better marketer, when you work with your customers. was the best thing I ever did was leave the corporate office and go work in a field or a region office because you get closer to where the beer is being sold. And what's interesting about beer and sports marketing and beer is that it's very much about retail. How is the product being sold? Bars and restaurants, convenience stores, grocery stores, delis, home Ds, you name it. So how does it come up? I don't think anybody said, hey, we should do a commemorative series with all six. It was this is the Steelers' sixth Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I think a beer distributor said it in one meeting, and that kind of got the ideation going. God, how could we ever do a six pack? There is a way you can do it. We can't do them all together because that was the first idea. Oh, we got to get a six pack with every one of them.
Yep.
Yeah, I would shut down 3 bottling lines or 3 can lines at the brewery if we tried it that way. You know what? By talking to more people, by building trust, that's how you get to it. But it comes out of a thread of, somebody saying something just innocuous like, yeah, 6 beers or six pack based on 6 wins for the Steelers.
Yep. A little bit after your stint at the beer company, you transitioned over to AT&T, which is a pretty crazy transition from beer to a company like AT&T. There you led a team handling an enormous sponsorship portfolio, 70 plus properties across sports and entertainment. What type of strategies did you use to manage and measure so many partnerships effectively? Can you share maybe an example of how you leveraged AT&T's technology or their network to create kind of more of an innovative fan experience that set AT&T apart from other brands, something that might hint at why AT&T was named Sports Sponsor of the Year during your tenure there?
Yeah, I think the opportunity to work at AT&T was basically, wow, this is the biggest sponsor, one of the biggest one of the biggest portfolios in global sponsorship. A great job in sports business. And during the recruiting and when I was chasing the job, one of the things that they asked was, hey, listen, we're looking for a marketer who knows sports, not a sports guy. Okay, that goes back to that foundational knowledge, and it helped me get the job. I had the opportunity to work for great boss, Mark Wright, who was my competitor at Anheuser-Busch when I was at Molson-Coors. So, okay, that made the connection with the boss really seamless right out of the gate. One of the things that we really thought of when I got an AT is, all right, we've got to furnish the mansions, which is a way of saying we have a lot of properties, 70 plus properties. How do we activate more effectively? And oftentimes when you have a big portfolio, you don't have the resources to activate all 70. So you got to focus on your activation. So it's really, the analogy is put gas in the car or furnish the mansion. Future focus the portfolio. Okay. The portfolio, to its credit, AT&T is a leader in golf, leader in college athletics. Great. But the way we activate needs to be about where the business is going. And we're AT&T, we're kind of creating that future with mobile technology. And then figure out how to bring your people along for the ride in a way that they help lead that change. One of the things you learn in leadership, earlier in your career, you just want to, I think I sought to save my team time. No, that's not going to work. I tried it before, it won't work. No. Don't let your people barf and fall on their face. Let them trip and stumble and learn, because it'll make them better performers and better leaders in their future. That was a great learning lesson. Lesson of learning early in my career. One of the things we try to do with AT&T, and with the way how fast tech is moving, this example will sound very dated, but literally how to deliver 5G quality content through the mobile device. How to treat the mobile device as the first screen. Before I took the AT&T job, people were saying, all right, people will watch highlights on their phone, but nobody wants to watch a full NFL game on their phone. Well, turns out they do. Yeah, yep. I think it's better on a 60-inch screen, 60-foot screen, even better. But it's better watching it. But when I'm walking through an airport, I'll watch the Ryder Cup on my phone. I'll watch an NFL game on my phone. Like, it's the best thing available. So the way we're able to innovate the technology inside AT&T Stadium to make the fan experience. I mean, you're at a Cowboy game. You should be watching it with your clear eyes, but the ability to serve up high-def technology on the phone. And we sort of pioneered that with a test market around the college football playoff, which was held at AT&T Stadium 1 year after we put our name on the building.
And throughout your entire career, AT&T Miller-Coors, you've kind of worked on everything from the naming rights to the grassroots activations. When you evaluate a potential sponsorship or partnership, what are the key ingredients that you look for to ensure it truly drives value for the brand and feels authentic for the fan? Is there a particular deal or relationship that you negotiated, that you and your team negotiated, that you're most proud of, or that taught you kind of an unexpected lesson about the power of a partnership?
7 questions in there. I'm going to break them down to the two most important. Um, what do I look for in a deal? I need to tell you this is a great learning and that I can benefit from my career. That is a different answer from Miller-Coors to
Okay.
AT&T to Goldman Sachs. It is a
Can you
different
separate
answer
it for all three?
from beer. It's a different to telecom and tech
Yep.
and media to finance. There are some common threads, and I'll get to those. But
Okay.
in beer, okay, I need to be able to activate at retail. Miller Lite was a sponsor of the Cowboys, so I had relationships with the people at the Cowboys before I came to AT&T.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but to be clear, there's 80,000 fans at a Cowboy game on every Sunday. All right, so throw in a couple preseason games, couple of playoff games, international soccer, concerts. If the Pope comes to America, he's going to go to Chicago, but I hope he'll also stop by AT&T Stadium someday.
Yep. Yep.
And that's the greatness of that stadium. You know what? But when at Miller-Coors, I need to be able to get at the Cowboy fans who live all over the state of Texas. Because only 5% of NFL fans will ever make it to one NFL game in their life.
Wow.
Right? We're in the business and we're close to
Wow.
it, so we go a lot more. But the fan, very few of them get to one game. How do we bring that Cowboys experience to retail at Miller-Coors, at every grocery store, liquor store, convenience store in the state of Texas? At AT&T, it's about engaging consumers with content they can get on their mobile device. As more eyeballs, more of our time goes to that, then you're looking for different things. What came out of AT&T Stadium, just to stay with that example, for Miller-Coors, it was about getting the Cowboys at retail. For AT&T, it's about this is the most innovative organization in global sports. The Jones family and the Cowboys organization were committed to upgrading that to make the stadium a leader in technology. And I don't think we should be surprised that they're hosting 9 World Cup games as we head for next year. Okay, how do we tell our technology story? It wouldn't make sense for AT&T to put naming rights on top of Wrigley Field or Fenway Park because those brands are all about history and heritage.
Yep.
And I don't want to say retro, but there's more history and heritage. The Cowboys have a great history and heritage, but they're future focused, which fit with very well with AT&T. Mm-hmm. Goldman Sachs, it's all about what you look for in a partnership is where can we get money can't buy experiences to engage valuable clients, to showcase our commitment to excellence. So partnering with the number one golfer in the world in Nelly Korda made all the sense in the world. Or Patrick Cantlay coming off his Player of the Year season. Being able to entertain clients at the U.S. Open, at major golf championships, at major tennis championships. That's really a little bit more of what you look for in the partnership in elite financial services.
Do you think that you going from, AT&T, Goldman Sachs, Miller-Coors, did each step of the way help you learn how to market better for the next company?
I think so because I'm marketing different products and I'm marketing to different targets, okay? Mm-hmm. Spring break for Keystone Light in Panama City Beach is a very different experience than high net worth investors at a major championship for golf. Okay. So where I'm very comfortable in the room is I've worked with all different consumer, client, and customer groups. When you sit down with Walmart to figure out, what matters to them, to their customers coming through the door, NASCAR is a great fit. Maybe not Formula One. NASCAR is a great fit. You'll learn what matters to your customer and your consumers. That's where it's been very valuable, and I don't think I would trade anything of having the experience of working with spring breakers on Keystone Light to high net worth investors at the U.S. Open.
You mentioned Goldman Sachs. After a long time on the brand side, you then kind of pivoted over to the finance world as the VP of partnerships at Goldman Sachs, which is a totally different arena, completely different arena. What motivated the move? How did that marketing skill set that you had translate to enhancing the client experiences in finance? I know we talked about that a little bit. And then were there any challenges in convincing a non-sports company to invest in sports or entertainment partnerships? How did you bridge the gap between Wall Street and the sports world?
You're nice in the way you asked the question, but I'll say many people at Goldman Sachs have bridged the world of Wall Street and sports long before I got there. One anecdote, I was really proud of the partnership AT&T had with the Yankees. We were one of their largest partners.
Yep.
I had renegotiated the renewal agreement. We had the logo behind Derek Jeter when he hit his final hit in Yankee Stadium. I'm sharing that story with a partner at Goldman Sachs, and he's like, "Oh, that's cool." I created the Yes Network. Like, oh, okay, got it. So to be really clear, Goldman Sachs is outstanding at bringing their values into their experiences: client engagement, excellence, integrity. And so what we look for at Goldman Sachs is finding partners who can deliver on our corporate values, but also give our clients a unique experience that they can't get anywhere else. It's called Money Can't Buy Experience. Reasonable people can debate if that's a fair comment at Goldman Sachs, but the ability to curate, many people have gotten to play the finest golf courses in the world. Very few have had the chance to play that around with the number one golfer in the world, in Miller-Coors. And she is a wonderful athlete who represents Goldman Sachs corporate values. So I think what was really fascinating was some of the foundational elements of any partnership. They work whether you're working on Keystone Light or whether you're working with Goldman Sachs. When it comes to working with talent, one of the things I really learned was bet on character before you bet on performance. And I can honestly say with the athletes I've worked with, from Brad Keselowski in the number 2 Miller Lite Dodge, working with Penske Racing, who went on to win the NASCAR championship, to signing an agreement with a 21-year-old named Jordan Spieth. And 6 months later, he took us on the ride of our lives and, winning, going 1-1-2-4 in all the major championships and winning Player of the Year. To the partnerships with Nelly Korda and Patrick Cantlay. In each situation, we bet on their strength of character more than we bet on, well, we know they'll win races. When you have athletes and partners who are good and have integrity, the winning and the performance will fall into place. And it's been a privilege to see some of those athletes that I've worked with succeed professionally and personally in their own lives.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's amazing how you put it, to go for the character instead of the performance, and then the performance will hopefully come after that. Can you talk a little bit about your role at Outlyr too?
Yeah, Outlyr is an outstanding event marketing firm, and they run the back of house operations and sponsorship sales for about 7 events on the LPGA Tour, Korn Ferry event. They do a lot of back of house work for Live Golf. Live Golf is an outstanding challenger brand, and Outlyr basically helps bring their events to life. The 3 of their events in the United States, not all over the world, but here in the United States. Great firm, about 60 people. My job was to basically figure out how to help them strengthen their marketing portfolio a little bit, build their awareness, because they are an outstanding challenger brand that's looking to figure out how they can grow. And so I was basically consulting with them. I know the owners of the firm, or I keep saying the firm, I'm coming out of Goldman Sachs, the owners of the company, great young energy all around the company, and a lot of fun working with them just to figure out how they can get their marketing message tight and figure out how they can grow and do a little bit more business with their clients and with their partners.
And then after you were at Outlyr, you started your own firm recently, Arluck Advisors, where you are advising upcoming brands and sports organizations. What is it like, and how does it feel to step out on your own as an entrepreneur after, these 25 years inside of the corporate roles? And then why are you looking to work with these challenger brands? What led you to that? And then, what brand would you most want to work with?
Ooh, all right, another one where there's like 4 questions in there. It's exciting. It's exhilarating. A little nervous. There's a level when you work at the big corporations. I don't mind saying you're a little bit defined by your business card. Hi, Ryan Lucky, Miller-Coors. Hi, Ryan Lucky, AT&T. Ryan Lucky, Goldman Sachs. My wife always jokes about that third one, like you're kind of a big deal, like Ron Burgundy. When you work for Outlyr, when you work for yourself, work on your own business, you're betting on yourself. You're betting that your strength in your own personal brand equity is greater than the equity of your business card. And inevitably, as you grow in your career, you'll learn you can't be all things to all people. You have to specialize in what you do best. Part of leadership is not beating yourself up about what you're not good at. It's about making your strengths towering strengths. I think I am good at collaborating with challenger brands because I've sat in the chair of the leader brands. I've sat in the chair of the brand decision makers, what matters to CMOs, what matters to CFOs, and the unique value I can bring is helping those smaller challenger brands and smaller firms that know they want to be involved in the sports ecosystem to grow their own personal brands and grow their individual brands. They don't know necessarily the right bet to make, and they don't want to make mistakes. It's brands that are ready to be bold, but know they can't afford to screw up. Being a challenger brand is genuinely exciting because you don't have the biggest budget in the world.
Yep.
But you can be laser focused rather than blasting a shotgun. You're laser focused or rifle focused on what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, the ultimate challenger brand is not a small brand; it's Red Bull. Oh, that's a great challenger brand that would be a thrill to work on because they create categories rather than latch on as official beverage of something. But that's an example of a great challenger brand. For the small time I had at Outlyr working on Live Golf, which is a great challenger brand with people that are trying to figure out how to bring some innovation and disruption to the game. I think that's very healthy. And not in a bad way, but hey, people like team golf. Maybe there's a way you can bring it to life. People want new camera angles. It's okay to cheer when people are hitting a golf shot. I think it's okay to wear shorts when it's 97 degrees out.
Yep.
I think some of those things that Liv is bringing to golf are going to make it real exciting, and that makes them exciting challenger brands.
And we talked about a little bit about this before. You mentioned your kind of how your leadership style has evolved throughout the years. At first, you wanted to save time, and then now you let people make mistakes because they learn better that way. Can you just describe a little bit more in depth about how you do your personal leadership style and when it comes to running marketing teams and nurturing this talent? Can you share an example of a time you had to lead a team through a very tough challenge and how you handled it?
Yeah. You don't live life with regret, but you recognize that you've made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. The CEO of Goldman Sachs and the assistant brand manager at Miller-Coors all make mistakes. Okay. So I think what I would say is when I was earlier in my career, I always thought of like, okay, I got to have my values. I got to have my positions. I got to have my leadership style. Bad idea. It's good to have a leadership principle about how you want to lead a team. When you are dealing with people, I have found that I need to be a much more effective situational leader. Why? Because there's times where you're going to have someone working with you that doesn't really on your team that doesn't know what they're doing. That's when you got to be more of a directive boss and coaching and in checking in every day. When you've got an expert on your team, you can delegate because you have trust. So it's really a level of being a situational leader where there's times where are you a delegator or are you a micromanager? No, I'm both. And I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to be supportive boss. I have to meet my people where they are at the moment. I can have some principles of guys, we're going to be a high functioning team. Hey, that's great. But the way you manage the individuals is going to be, it has had to be very different. Where I was most excited and energized in my career of when Molson and Coors came together, I had a team of 7, everybody with completely different skill sets. What's energizing is when you recognize, okay, who's the poet, who's the quant, who's the athlete, who's the former athlete, and you learn very quickly, wow, I'm not going to beat you up for your weaknesses. I got to turn each of your individual strengths into towering strengths, but I have an expectation, a non-negotiable expectation of trust and that we will share what we do well with each other. And if you are the quant jock, I expect you to help the poet, not to turn him into a quant jock, but help the poet get a little bit better. And then that guy who's worked in the field for 10 years and you're the new academic, he's going to tell you about the reality of working with beer distributors and working with retailers like Kroger or Buffalo Wild Wings. That elevates the team on a whole when you get everybody sharing and not hoarding information. I don't know, I did a little hug there. But that for me I was really energized to see how that team comes together. And when I teach and in my adjunct classes at SMU or when I've guest lectured anywhere, like 10 different schools, seeing the team, when you do team dynamics, seeing people with different strengths share share their gifts, share their strengths with each other. Like, all right, I'm not a quant jock. I'm more of a storyteller, but I value what I can learn from the quant jock that makes me a little bit smarter. If that analogy holds, what it really means is focus much more on being a better situational leader rather than being a principled leader.
Yeah, and those situational leadership skills you talked a little bit about, and they transition to the classroom. You mentioned you were an adjunct professor, 10 different schools, lecturer there too. Why is educating this next generation so important to you personally?
I think it goes back to what I was telling you about when I started Atlanta learning. You know, we all talk about Ted Lasso too much, and I don't mean that in a warm and fuzzy way, but be curious, not judgmental. I call it thirst for learning. Whatever the words are all maybe a little different, but the principle is the same. What I
Mm-hmm.
look for in anybody and what I hope to inspire of anybody I work with is and bring to the table is an innate curiosity and an innate thirst for learning, an excitement to know that learning really happens when you admit you don't know it all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think I learn as much from the students I teach. And if I get the opportunity to work with you at SMU in the future, you know, you're going to teach me stuff I don't know. When I first
Yep.
started teaching at SMU, I was given examples of some of the NASCAR stuff I did, and by the third year, I'm noticing everybody's buried in their phones a lot more, and everybody's taking their notes digitally, and basically one of them's like, like, we don't really watch NASCAR. Like, oh, okay, well, I need better examples.
Yeah.
Teaching forces me to learn.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And probably some of that comes from a frustration when I was an undergrad and you got the guy who's, maybe approaching, the end of their tenure, giving you examples of like when the basketball shorts were like, 3 inches long. And, I don't want to be that guy. And with the massive change of pace that we're all working through, having a thirst for learning is a mandate. It's laughable that we finish college when we're 22 or 23 and we think our learning is done. I almost think the model of college needs to change where they force you all to go back every 3 years or in an online environment for constant refreshing. And maybe that needs to apply to med school and law school and B school and every type of school because the thirst for learning is absolutely mandatory.
Yeah. And you've talked about kind of you having to update and refresh your example so the students didn't get bored and they knew what you were talking about. And that transitions right back to the corporate world where you need to keep innovating and adapting over your 25 years of business. Can you give an example of a major change or a trend in sports marketing that you embraced and how did you leverage it successfully?
I'm more excited about where the world's going in the future than what I've been through. But if I would talk about one major change I had to embrace, but was easy and to once you get through the original bumps, that's easy to embrace. It's just an overall recognition that mobile is the first screen. Okay, the mobile device. All the jokes I was making earlier um, about nobody wants to watch a 3-hour NFL game on their phone. Well, it turns out they do. And so, if we recognize that majority of our traffic and a majority of our time on screens is spent on the mobile screen, we need to engage consumers and engage our fans
Mm-hmm.
through the devices they're most comfortable with and where they want to engage. We need to recognize that everything is not a long form story. Long form storytelling has its place, but snackable, digestible highlights. We used to laugh at 6-second commercials. Okay, they can be effective. I would say, the mobile revolution came along as I was leaving Miller-Coors, transitioning AT&T. So I got to AT&T at a very exciting time. iPhone was in year 3 and fundamentally changing the way we all behave. How it's changing the fan experience. Being able to work on that at AT&T was genuinely exciting, and being able to serve up the content from the partners we work with on the mobile device and finding ways to get it to them, not just in the raw form of the full game, but in snackable highlights and shoulder programming, was something I was quick to embrace, and I don't think it's ever changed. I now, like, when I see any digital programming, my first question after getting the presentation of here's how great it looks on this monitor and the long story, my first question, without being a Debbie Downer, is cool. Let's pivot to what it looks like on the mobile device. And sometimes
Yep.
there's the, oh, darn, we didn't think of that. Like, no, I mean, okay, guys, that's how future generations are consuming everything. So we need to think about that. And there's going to be more devices and more technologies that we're going to continue to need to work with and innovate on.
just a little bit about the past and then how it affects the future. And yeah, I mean, obviously, I agree that everything's transitioning to mobile. I mean, I use my phone probably twice as much as my laptop every day. Just want to reflect a little bit on your accomplishments. You've achieved a lot. You've had some industry awards. You've had successful campaigns. What do you think is your proudest professional accomplishment so far, and why? Conversely, is there a deal or a project that got away or didn't work out that you still think about today?
Let's see. Accomplishments. All right, it's nice to be recognized by your peers. And so in 2015, we came off the year where we hosted the Final Four at AT&T Stadium, the first college football playoff champ game, Oregon, Ohio State. Jordan Spieth went on his tear. The U.S. women's soccer team won the World Cup. And we were trying to activate on all these properties. You don't want to say, which one of your children do you love the most? But we had a hell of a year, and the Sports Business Journal recognized us as Sports Sponsor of the Year. Awesome, great. One of the coolest projects I worked on probably a year or two later after that was basically when AT&T was integrating with DirecTV. We were the sponsor of the March Madness Music Festival concert at the site. Nice outdoor concert for about 15 to 20,000 fans who would journey into the city for the event. We found a way to put that concert on a DirecTV and stream it out to 26 million subscribers. And it wound up being the genesis of a Friday night music series on DirecTV. Okay, that was something where I could see the transformation as it's happening. Like a year ago, we were here partying, and now we're monitoring how it's being tracked on by the 26 million viewers. Now, I'm not saying all 26 million tuned in for it, but the fact that we could serve it up to 26 million was game-changing for us. It's a longer-winded way, though, of saying as you grow in your career, you take a lot of pride in the people that you've worked with and their success in their career. So I take a lot of pride in some of the students I taught at SMU, and even when I taught at Indiana, and some of the people I've managed at Miller-Coors and AT&T are exceeding what I'm doing in the sports business. So I do take a lot of pride in that, and I will effort to hit them up for tickets whenever I can.
And obviously, your path through your career has not been linear. There's been a ton of pivots and even risks. I feel that a lot of people, especially younger people, can feel stressed or they have serious doubts about where they're going or what they've done. And if you could just talk about a moment where you faced a setback or had serious doubts about a career decision, maybe these younger people could relate a little bit to that story.
There's a few things I take comfort in, and have an appreciation for. It's a recognition of nobody can show you the exact path to take, but it's on you to pick a path. And it's not pass or fail. It's pick the path. You pick the path, and you either fail or you learn. Okay, I had the opportunity. I had been working in brand management, and somebody said, "You want to go out to the field? You want to leave Colorado?" I'm like, no, nobody wants to leave Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. But it's like, all right, you want to work in sports someday? Here's the opportunity to work in New York, New Jersey on the Jets and the Giants, and Pennsylvania on the Steelers programming, and led to some of the stuff I was talking to you about earlier. Oh, okay. This is a part of the career journey. Where does your personal life fit into it? I'm a New Jersey native, so when Coors offered me the opportunity, like, hey, we want you to leave Golden. No, but you'll send me to Jersey, and my 4-year-old kid can be near their grandparents, and I get to work on the Giants. Wasn't sure if that was going to work out. Worked out well on the personal side and the professional side. I was able to diversify my experience. It prepared me more to run the sponsorship portfolio at Molson Coors. So I think, if you're worried, that's okay. A, that's really normal. But B, have that thirst for learning where you're excited to take on new challenges. And even though if you won't enjoy it entirely, at a minimum, you will learn something. My path looks very obvious and linear when you look back on it, but I promise you, when you're going through it, everything's going to involve a little bit of trepidation and a little bit of risk. But I would tell you, one of the greatest learnings I got from that is that influence is more important than power. Influence is better than power. Power, let's be really clear, power lies in the hands of who's got the most impressive business card and who owns the budget. Influence can be the domain of anyone. To be great at influencing, you need two things. You boil it all down to two things: know your stuff and build good relationships. Okay? I say that because if you know your stuff, but you're a jerk, people will have to listen to you, but don't want to work with you.
Yep.
If you're a great person, but you're a little muddy on your data, people will want to have a drink with you or, want to hang out with you, but they won't always trust your recommendation. I promise you, the assistant brand manager, the entry level person, yourself in 1 year, when you're taking on your first job, you will have no power. But if you know your stuff and you build good relationships, you have the ability to influence the CEO, especially if he or she is a good CEO. They will say, that's a good idea. That kid, sorry to say kid, that individual knows his stuff. Okay. You know your stuff and you find a way to communicate it effectively in a way that builds trust in a relationship. And that I think I hope that's a lesson that anyone getting started can take is, all right, I got to study hard. I got to know my stuff. I got to admit I don't know it all, but I got to be really smart about how I communicate it with and how I build relationships. That's influence. That's how you can grow early in your career.
I love that answer. So it's just about balancing what you know and how to build relationships. And if you do those two things right, that could lead you to a good path.
Yes.
All right, let's get into some rapid fire questions here. A fun segment. What is the coolest sporting event you've ever attended, and what's the one event that gave you absolute chills in person?
Fortunate, and I think a lot of us who work in the business are fortunate. We've been to a lot of those events, but as a New Jersey native, as a lifelong New York Giants fan, the first time I ever got to go to a Super Bowl, the Giants were playing in it. One even better, at the height of the Yankees-Red Sox rivalry, it was against the Patriots. Oh, and even better, they beat these 18-0 Patriots, and I was there. So I don't know if I'll have anything in the tomorrow's not promised to any of us. However many more years I have on this earth, I don't know if anything's going to give me more chills than that in the sports business. That one was genuinely was a bucket list that I didn't have on my bucket list before it happened.
Yeah, no, and then Jackson Dart, he's looking pretty good this year. You guys may have a good season.
I got to be careful. I try not to use the word we or you guys because I have nothing to do with it other than I'm an avid fan. So
yeah, okay. And who was your sports idol growing up, and what was your favorite, athlete or role model as a kid?
As a kid, my favorite athlete to watch was Lawrence Taylor. Just being a Giants fan, tough to call him a role model. But as I aged and as I also being a Yankee fan, just to model the success, the professionalism, the personal conduct, the greatness in Mariano Rivera with absolute consistency from 1995 when I first saw him pitch as a middle reliever to when he wrapped up his career in 2013. He's on that, trust me, that picture you see over there, right there, that's Mariano Rivera's last game. And I got a Lawrence Taylor picture somewhere else. Yeah, and that's David Tyree catching the helmet catch. So there you go. And that's Atlanta. So you can see the fundamental things that mattered to me in my career and the athletes I've admired.
Go-to snack or drink on game day?
There's a little piece of me that'll never shake Coors Light and Miller Lite. So, and all that. But if I'm at a game, particularly at AT&T Stadium, I encourage everybody to enjoy a brisket nacho. There's nothing more Texas in this world than brisket on nachos. In all candor, but if I'm working the event, it's keep some bottled water around, and when you get in the fourth quarter, then you can enjoy a Coors Light or a Miller Lite.
Yeah. Personal theme song when walking into an important meeting or presentation, or just personal theme song in general.
3 job interviews with AT&T, Miller-Coors for the sports job, and Goldman Sachs. 3 minutes before I walk into the interview room, I put on the Super Bowl, I forget the number, but the 2002 Super Bowl U2 performance of Where the Streets Have No Name. I want to tear down the walls that hold me inside. That is my psych up music before I walked into those interviews. And I guess I got to keep it going because it worked a few times. But I'm finding that, as I tell that story, like, all right, I grew up when U2 was awesome and they've been rocking for 40 years. I may need to find some new music in the future, but that is my go-to.
Okay, that's cool. Job in the sports industry you'd love to try one day besides your own.
Uh, the audio voice, I used to say the radio voice, but let's just call it the audio voice of the New York Yankees.
That's awesome. Okay, game day superstition or routine. Do you have any, quirky habits or must-do routines when you're working at a big event or just, watching your teams play?
Um, I tend to stand for
Mm,
what it's worth. Whether I'll be honest, I can't sit and watch a 3 hour NFL game, and I don't think anybody in our business has the bandwidth to
yeah,
watch 6 hours of college football on Saturday and another
yeah.
3 to 4 hours of their favorite NFL team on Sunday.
Hmm.
So I tend to stand. I tend to, all right, I'll get errands and chores done, but I will be around for
Hmm.
the third and fourth quarter, but I find myself standing up. And when I am at an event, maybe this goes back to my high school team. When we're in the crowd cheering on the basketball team, we always stood like the Duke fans in Cameron. And
Yep.
so I tend to stand. I don't know if it's superstition. It is a habit.
Do you have a hidden talent or a hobby, something that people would be surprised to learn about that you do outside of work?
Hidden talent. I've lived in Texas for 12 years, and I absolutely have an appreciation for an appliance. I don't use a toaster, but I use a smoker. I have a smoker in my backyard. I did not have one of those when I lived in
Okay.
New Jersey or Chicago. But wherever I live in the future, I will always seek to have a smoker nearby because it is, I don't want to call it meditative, but okay, it makes you very present. You got to
Hmm.
spend time on it. You got to curate it. You got to manage
Yep.
it closely. And,
Hmm.
get a little personal. My mother worked in the test kitchens at Kraft and General Foods for a long time. I guess her love language is cooking and food. And I was really proud when I smoked. I did a smoked salmon in my smoker, and Mom took a bite and she's like, "This is good." I'm like, "Don't be surprised." Like, "Thanks, Mom." She's a wonderful person, but I valued her affirmation of my ability to do a nice smoked salmon.
I mean, yeah, I really loved how you put that you got to stay close to it and manage it. I feel like that just relates to what you do in business too. So maybe that's why you like smoking things so much.
Smoking meat, yeah, exactly, yeah, meat and veggies, yeah.
Yeah, but this one's one of my favorite questions. If you could have a front row seat to any sporting event in history, which one would you choose and why?
The World Cup, because I haven't done it yet, and I will solve that next year. That's what
Mm,
I am genuinely excited about. When I was around for the '94 World Cup, the opening game of the World Cup being in New Jersey was Italy versus Ireland at Giant Stadium. All right, you know what? I didn't get to go to it. Tickets were expensive at
yeah.
$400 a ticket, but at the
Wow.
time, I couldn't afford that. But I'm very much looking forward to, I don't think I'll get a front row seat, but I plan to get to one or two World Cup matches somewhere in the United States, Canada, or Mexico going into 2026.
Hmm. If you could have one brand sponsor your entire life giving you their product or service for free forever, which brand would you love to partner with?
I wish I could be more creative with this answer, but having Coors Banquet, it was a privilege to work for Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado, long before, and it was a privilege to work for Miller-Coors as well and Molson Coors. But when it was just Coors Brewing, Golden, Colorado, and we only had five brands, there's an emotional connection to
Yep.
that experience and that time of my life, and I am always very proud to have worked on it. And if they want to give me Coors Banquet for life, I would never say no. You just learn when you get into your 40s and 50s that that's a product you can't have unlimited quantities of in your life as you manage your health.
Okay, and then I just want to ask you one final question. This is a question that I like to ask to all my guests just to wrap it up. So you've seen so many people chase this industry, some make it, some don't. What separates the ones who succeed from the ones who fade out, and what advice would you give to the young people trying to break into the industry?
Couple things. I'm going to just reject the premise on fading out because we all
Yep.
have different opportunities that come along in our career, and it's a tough industry to get your foot in the door in. It's a tough industry to quote stay in, but that it doesn't mean that you have to limit yourself. What I would tell you, and I would tell anybody listening, is figure when you're looking for any job, just build yourself a little triangle, and there's three parts of that triangle. When I consider a job, will I learn? Will I enjoy the work? will I be compensated? Learning, happiness, and compensation. When you're starting out in your career, at different points in your career, different parts of that triangle will mean will have different levels of importance. When you're starting out, unless you got staring down the barrel of major college debt you got to pay and you got to go for compensation, go for learning. Take the opportunity. Move away from your family or move away from your friends. Take the opportunity to learn. Somebody wants to give you an entry-level job in a front office, take it. Learn. If you don't like it, you will have learned you don't like it. When I was studying sports medicine, I thought, I wanted to be a physical therapist. I found that I didn't enjoy repairing the broken ankles of elderly people who slipped in a grocery store. That was great learning. Okay. And it happened that, I can't make that kind of learning mistake in my 50s, but that's a great way to learn early. So I think fundamentally, sports or any business, balance your priorities between in your job hunt in the areas of, am I learning? Will I enjoy the work? Will I be fairly compensated, or will I be well compensated? And compensated isn't just about the paycheck. I talked about that opportunity earlier in my career to leave Colorado and New Jersey. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of people do that with excitement. For me, it was part of compensation because I was moving to a place where my child would get to hang out with their grandchildren, with their grandparents. And I could work on the teams I grew up loving. So that was a not monetary compensation, but it was emotional compensation. Okay, so whenever you're pursuing any job, I think about this even in what I'm doing right now. Will I learn? Will I enjoy the work? And how's the compensation?
All right.
And, it's not to say that that's about money. Just recognize it's a reality. Yeah. If you're saving for 3 kids to go to college, compensation's really bleeping important. Okay, and it's okay to say it out loud. But keep those 3 things in balance as you are entering the business and as you are trying to sustain in that business. Am I continuing to learn? Am I enjoying the work? And am I compensated fairly?
I love that answer, and I like how you did the triangle, because some people are definitely more visual learners, so that'll definitely help a lot. All right, thank you so much for coming on. And how can people reach you? Whether it's email or LinkedIn or whatever you have.
Yeah, Ryan.Lucky@teamarlock.com. And and LinkedIn, absolutely easy. I won't profess to be a whiz on TikTok or any of that. I'm not trying to show my age. Or sign up and take one of my classes when I'm teaching either at Goldman Sachs. When I'm teaching at SMU or guest lecturing, down here in DFW. But I'll go anywhere for that. That's where I'm at my best. It's where I'm most engaged. But by all means, find me anywhere you can. Email and LinkedIn work best.
Okay, thank you so much. And all right, that's it for Sports Business Unplugged. This episode was amazing. Definitely check out our YouTube, check out our other episodes. Sports Business Unplugged on Instagram and TikTok. You guys can check out my LinkedIn, obviously just Andrew Sachs. And thank you so much, and see you guys next time.